Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. This is Channel Vision editor Gerald Baldino here, and we're very excited to feature NHC for a webinar on supporting distributed workforces. Joining us today from NHC is Glenn Nelson and Chris Susi. And at this point, I'd like to turn the webinar over to NHC to begin. Guys?
Thank you very much, Gerald. So let's kick it off with what we're going to discuss today. Chris, if I could get the next slide. Great. So we're going to go over a little bit about NHC, New Horizon Communications. We're going to talk a little bit about our solutions that we call as a stack solution provider. We're going to talk about two great studies that we found on work from home that we think you'll find very interesting from both an end user perspective, from an employer perspective, pre-COVID, COVID, and then what plans we have for post-COVID. And then Chris Susi, who is our head of product and brand, will talk about our NHC solutions that we have for work at home. This is a very exciting time, we think, for the whole industry. A lot's happening. Where some folks have had some issues, certainly sad things with COVID in the communications business, this has really been a page turner for us, a chance for us to look at what's happening now and what will be happening in the future with lots of technology and solutions that are coming out of the cloud. So next slide, please, Chris. So a little bit about NHC. We were established in 2002. In fact, today, October 7th, is our 18th anniversary. So we're very proud that we've been servicing businesses and organizations for their communications needs for 18 years. Kind of physical locations, we're headquartered in Concord, Massachusetts, which is about 15 miles outside of Boston. We have a 7x24 by 365 facility in Fort Myers, Florida. We also have an operations engineering facility in Rochester, New York. And hopefully I've got this right, but we've got employees actually covering both coasts and 12 states that cover both the Midwest and the Southwest. So we're now national in scope, and we are national in scope in terms of our resources. You know, kind of when I see the word CLEC, and we've certainly used it in our industry for many, many years, kind of what's in a name. So CLEC means competitive local exchange carrier or company. And that really has been our name probably for at least 15, 16 of our 18 years. But really our industry, certainly New Horizon in our industry, has outgrown that terminology, because that really said, I'm a competitive local exchange carrier. I'm competing with the local telephone companies, say may have Verizon or CenturyLink or AT&T. And really that model has changed quite dramatically. Technically, CLEC is still used, and it's very important in establishing companies differentiating between NHC and some of our competitors. And that is that we are also a certified regulated telephone company in 49 states, plus the District of Columbia. So that is something that we still use, but the name CLEC, we just think it's definitely doesn't apply to our industry anymore. And if you see kind of what's happened, certainly in the last couple of years, as things have moved beyond just providing access to customers, our industry has adopted different names. One you might hear kicking around is CSP, Communication Service Provider. At NHC, we just don't think that covers it for us. It's just too vague of a term. So what we did, we kind of tipping our hat to the 40-year definition of the OSI model and the 7 layers of that and how computers communicate. We said, okay, how do we interpret something like that in a modern era, in 2020, 2021, and how do we place that specifically for communications companies? And so we said, we're kind of unique in that business because we can provide lots of services beyond just, what we would call layer 1 in our stack of network access. We can provide things like overlay and things like managed services, which I'll be talking about in a moment. What we came up with as a term, and we've trademarked this phrase, we call ourselves a communication stack provider. So we've defined what we see, which is really 3 layers of the stack, and that kind of culminates into all services that we can offer to a customer, both now and in the future. And let's kind of take a look at those layers. So starting with layer one, pretty straightforward. This is the bottom of the stack. And it's going to be everything associated with network services. It's going to be everything associated with connectivity. So these are going to be things like fiber that we provide today, broadband, which we extensively provide coast to coast, anything related on the copper side. We also do satellite DIA, which has certain applications that are very good, especially for redundancy. We do lots of line of sight these days to provide very high speed line of sight communications. And I think, for us, one of the exciting sides for network services is the whole business of 4G LTE and soon to be 5G. And kind of what I'll say about that is, we have over 70 carrier partners, so lots of access to all kinds of things. In the wireless arena, we work extensively with Verizon and now also AT&T, and we are very excited on that side to not only have we been offering 4G LTE backup services for many of our overlay and managed services things, but we also are looking to see how we can extend that to more of a full-time basis. And we now are offering 12, 25, 50 meg, and 100 meg wireless 4G LTE services that really are a leap ahead of what we used to have a few years ago, which were obviously heavily usage-based. So we're kind of excited about that in the 4G LTE field. So now, temporary services where we don't have the terrestrial service in, we could put this in. Maybe we could run them simultaneously in an SD-WAN environment. So we're excited about that. And then, of course, 5G. And we've all heard in our industry now for 3 or 4 years, 5G is coming, 5G is coming. We see the commercials on TV where it's in pockets. I think one of the big drivers that we're going to see now is what's going to happen at the end of this month. Well, Apple is going to introduce the Apple 12. What does the Apple 12 have? Well, the Apple 12 is going to have 5G compatible phones. And that is a game changer in terms of pushing the gaming business and all the people that want to use that super high speed available from 5G. How about 300 million units? That's what we're talking about being able to sell over the next year to 18 months. That's going to drive a lot of applications. And of course, in our industry, what that's going to drive is a lot of things associated with distributed data and all sorts of things. So we're very excited about that side of the network services business. And it's our bread and butter in general, all of those things. So those work great for us. So the next layer would be overlay. And, some competitors out there still like to, resell their overlay solutions. As it says, this is the sparkly new car smell add-ons, the things, once you put in that broadband connection or you put in that DIA connection, what are the things that I could sell over and above that? So we call it overlay. And, that's going to be our whole line of UCaaS. It's going to be our hosted, our SIP solutions. It's going to be contact center. It's going to be SD-WAN. It will be some security and firewall. And obviously, it'll also be some DR mitigation products as well. And what's kind of interesting, and again, Chris is going to get into some of these in terms of a practical side. But, what we kind of look at it, we say, okay, a lot of our competitors out there, look, they're still doing resale for hosted and UCaaS and SIP and SD-WAN. We don't believe that a resale model works for that. We believe that a provider needs to have these services. We need to own it. We need to operate it. We need to maintain it in order to keep the high standard of service delivery that NHC provides for our customers. So these are things in which we own these, or we're partnering with folks that are leveraging our cloud services and our cloud devices. So we're very excited about this, and we have been a very big partner of Metaswitch. We have a fully redundant Metaswitch network. We've had it in place for 5 years. We've got tens of thousands of seats under management today. We are really excited about Metaswitches being purchased by Microsoft and what that's going to be able to provide for us in terms of a pathway to a lot of great Microsoft services. So we're excited about that. And also we're a VeloCloud shop, and we're very much tied to that. So let's look at the top layer, and the top layer is going to be our managed services. And here, what we kind of look at is we say, look, the IT battle that right now is going on between running things local or kind of in the cloud, it's done. The cloud is won. There is no question that more and more companies have left trying to manage everything on their own, manage it with their own infrastructure, and move to the cloud. The edge now, because of COVID and even beginning pre-COVID, as we'll show you in some of these studies, it now extends all the way to employees' homes. So why would any end user customer today want to try to manage all those cloud applications all the way to the edge of the end user? The answer is, most of them are not going to want to do that. And that's where our managed line comes in. We'll manage your wide area network. We'll manage your hosted and your SIP and your voice services. We'll provide managed security, and we'll provide managed firewall. And Chris will talk a little bit about how those relate to work from home applications shortly. So those are our 3 layers. That's our communication stack. We are the communication stack provider. So next slide, please, Chris. Okay, so we have 2 really exciting studies to talk about. The first one is a single large end user pre-COVID. It was sponsored by Stanford University, and a professor worked with an end user for 2 years. And we'll show you some of the results from that shortly. The second study is both what's happened today as of COVID, and this was done in June of this year, and then kind of what are some of the plans from an employer perspective, and they got detailed interviews with 120 different executives. And then what are kind of some of the worker views, some of the folks that we, working for those companies, what do they think about work from home? And they polled 1,200 of those folks. So we'll kind of look at that study. It's quite interesting. When you look at work from home, we see it as really several, considerations that you have to take into account. You kind of have to look at, is it more or less productive than an office environment? And this certainly was a concern, because it's important to understand that on these studies, and very much like perhaps myself or yourself, where we're used to working in an office, during the COVID thing, we had to be able to work from home. So all of this information that we're going to talk about briefly here are from folks that were working in office environments full-time, not folks that have spent their careers working out of their house. So is it more or less productive than an office environment? That's very much a concern for management. How do you measure the effectiveness of this? What are the key performance indicators? Should people be full-time in the field, working from their home, or should they perhaps be a hybrid where you mix it up with a couple of days here and there? And then, the employers need to provide additional resources for people to be able to work effectively at home. And how does that play in? And what are the opportunities for the community of New Horizon and our agent partners in terms of helping customers do that? So let's go to the next slide, Chris. So I think if we kind of look at the first study, 16,000 employee company, single entity, they took 500 employees that were working out of headquarters. One of the missions for top management was to determine, can they reduce that number, which would then possibly save them money in terms of negotiating their lease space for their headquarters. And they chose half of that group to work from home for 2 years, and the other half, kind of the control half, would work at headquarters as normal. The results were way different than what they thought was going to happen. The productivity boost among the telecommuters was equivalent to 1 day additional work per week. Okay, so this is a very big change in terms of what they thought was going to actually happen. And it's very, very exciting in that when you got rid of having to do all of the driving and all of the commuting issues, all of that goes away when you are working from your house. And in fact, what they found was that you pick up 1 day a week of productivity that you didn't have when you were having to commute into the office every day. So that's quite something. In addition to that, it decreased employee attrition by 50%. Okay, you get shorter, people that work from home had shorter breaks, fewer sick days, less time off. It was really a very big impactful on a pre-COVID basis. The company also estimated, as what they were hoping for, was that with staggered people coming in the office, they'd save $2,000 per employee per year for people working on headquarters. So the research kind of led the professor after 2 years to say, half the volunteers felt that full work at home was not working very well, too much isolation, not enough collaboration that needed to be done even with the technology that they used. And they wanted to do a sort of a partial work from home and work in the office. They think that would be an optimal arrangement. Next slide, please. The next one kind of looked at, this was done by a professional research organization done in June. And as I mentioned before, it was about 140 executives, different companies, and about 1,200 work from home folks that were working from home during COVID. And here's the exciting thing here. Looking at both a existing COVID and a post-COVID environment, employees, you're never going to return to the same office that you left behind. Things have changed. 72% of the workers would like to do 1, 2, or 3 days at home every week now moving forward. So with that, and that kind of a challenge where you need to be able to communicate securely with your end users, perhaps you're in the legal business, financial business, or in the medical business where you have certain security requirements, you've now got to move your control bubble of your physical location out to the individual employee's home, and that is a game changer. But that's one in which both employees and also employers really want to have. So if you look at some of these charts, it clearly shows not many of these people who were principally working out of offices wanted to make the change pre-COVID. Then during the COVID, more and more people did, and then post-COVID, they say, you know what, I really would like to work 1, 2, or 3 days a week at home. And we think we have the results in terms of the research to show why employers would want to do that. Next slide, please. So kind of what this study came up with, 57% said, hey, I want some greater flexibility in terms of my work hours, but by being able to do work at home, I'm going to be able to be far more productive than I am in that long commute back and forth to the office. I will need, 55%, better hardware and equipment, great opportunity in terms of that for both NHC and our agent partner community. They want a better mobile experience in terms of work applications and data. So there's more cloud-driven applications for them. They definitely need security policies that can support that remote workforce. We think that's very, very important, especially as we've moved out to the cloud. Kind of help. They also want help in building networks and relationships. So what this means is the one problem, if you look down below and you see that from a worker's perspective, the one thing they said they didn't like about working from home, like say full-time or maybe 4 days out of 5, was that the collaboration, being able to communicate with their fellow workers, being able to communicate on occasion with their suppliers and certainly with their customers is a problem, especially with coworkers where you really would like to be able to work and iron things out together. So that difficulty in collaboration is a major opportunity for us in terms of the technology that we can now offer for work at home. And then the last thing I think is very good that we've all learned from this experience of working from home is thanks to this kind of technology, we can now provide for our fellow workers from home new experiences, things like doing training at home where you don't get interrupted. You don't have the interruptions of a normal business or workstation environment, where you could do training and additional learning to help grow your own career. That's now a major HR benefit of some of this work at home stuff that we think is just the tip of the iceberg. So next slide, Chris. To kind of wrap it up, if we kind of look at this thing, we say, okay, pre-COVID, very positive improvements in terms of the numbers of where work at home looks, that we think that's something that you definitely, companies should definitely consider. COVID, almost everybody's shifted their entire workforce to work from home. So it was immediate, hey, we had to give it a try. Thanks to customers that have a lot of communication, like new resident customers that are in the cloud already with our hosting and SIP services, they were able to do that very, very quickly. 73% of the executives that were in part of this survey felt like that ship was a success. They also believe that work from home is here to stay, at least part of the time, and that businesses now have to spend money now for that secure work from home application so that now we can more permanently provide that 2-day, 3-day work from home environment that office workers today want to be able to do. So communication solutions that improve collaboration are going to be the key to making it in this particular business. We see this as a huge opportunity for you folks as well as for NHC. With that, I'll turn it over to our Director of Product and Brand, Chris Susi, and Chris is going to dive into our actual NHC solutions. Chris.
Hey, thanks, Glenn. I appreciate that. Good job. And thanks, everybody, for joining the webinar today. So what's hot for work from home? Some of you may be selling these solutions or some of these solutions today. NHC is really driving a lot of revenue with these solutions. And really, they fall into three key categories. One is voice and collaboration. So connectivity verbally, as well as with other social applications, with internally, as well as with their customers. The second is connectivity within the enterprise environment. So that is to say, across their wide area network, how are you expanding your enterprise edge from a brick and mortar location to the home user in the likes of a WAN? And then the third is security. How do you secure them? Because some companies may not have strict compliance requirements that they have to follow, like CPNI and HIPAA and things like that in certain verticals, but all companies have to be mindful of security on their network, right? So if you have assets internally in a brick and mortar location, your security requirements are X. You have those assets now distributed to a work from home environment, or let's say someone's working out of a coffee shop with a mask on. The same security requirements are going to exist, right? So how do you deliver those as an enterprise customer, or even as an SMB customer? So those are the three areas. So voice, WAN, and security. So at NHC, right, we've been selling our UCaaS application for years now, which is, as Glenn indicated earlier, is based off of a Metaswitch backbone. And for those that aren't super familiar with Metaswitch, Metaswitch is a manufacturer as well as a software developer based out of the UK. And the two key points about Metaswitch as it relates to why NHC and why our voice backbone is one, Metaswitch was just acquired by Microsoft, right? So that is huge. That is huge in terms of the road ahead. The second thing is that Metaswitch is a carrier-grade backbone. So carriers and telcos around the world, most of Europe, in fact, run Metaswitch on their as an infrastructure in their backbone. So Metaswitch is huge. So that's a huge play. Additionally, with Metaswitch, come a rich array of integrations that are currently available that we're taking advantage of today. Zoom, we're fully integrated with Zoom within our UCaaS environment. So from a collaboration perspective, very similar to what we're doing right now with the webinar, our UCaaS application is fully integrated with Zoom. So when somebody buys a UCaaS license from us, whether they're working in the office or working from home, like I am today, they can very easily click and add people to a meeting, whether they're on the network or off the network, if they're a colleague or not, or vendor or customer, and collaborate with them like that, screen share and so on and so forth. Most of us are pretty familiar with who Zoom is and what they bring to the table. So we're fully integrated with them. Additionally, from a why NHC UCaaS and collaboration perspective, we're a Polycom Platinum partner. So we distribute as far as a handset, but other accessory devices, Polycom directly to the end customer. Right now, I'm talking with you, not through my computer microphone, but through a Polycom VoxBox, which I hope it sounds great on your end. On my end, you sound fantastic, Glenn, when you were talking. So we're a Polycom distributor and we're a Platinum partner. And then finally, on the voice connectivity side, as it relates to the work from home, contact center, contact center, contact center. So within our infrastructure, we have an omni-channel, a full feature functionality contact center as a service, which doesn't necessarily have to be paired with our UCaaS offering. It can be it can complement our UCaaS offering, but it can also layer over the top over anybody's voice. So if you have a customer out there that might be using, heaven forbid, like a Ring Central or somebody like that, you can still layer our contact center solution over their voice. Or if they're using a legacy voice product like plain old POT service, they can use our contact center through that. And again, it's an omni-channel contact center, so it's full feature rich. And one of the feature highlights that I find most appealing in the work from home example is the dynamic notification feature, which is a multi-channel inbound outbound notification feature within our contact center that allows a customer to do everything from survey their customers after an interaction, manage appointment scheduling if they're a healthcare provider or a financial provider that's providing scheduling to talk about maybe refinancing a loan right now because mortgage rates are so low, whatever it is. So this dynamic notification feature works through SMS, through voice, through email, and it's fully integrated within the contact center solution. Very easy to use. Our organization is using it across the board for our distributed workforce, but also for our brick and mortar. So from a voice perspective, what's hot for work from home, that voice connectivity is obviously UCaaS and collaboration. The two go hand in hand, as well as the contact center. From a WAN perspective, most of you probably have heard the name Software Defined Wide Area Network. If you haven't, welcome to 2020. From a Software Defined Wide Area Network perspective, or SD-WAN as it's known, we are a VMware partner. VMware, Gartner just released their 2020 report, I think it was last week or the week before, and VMware, once again, by way of their VeloCloud product that they acquired 2 years ago, is the leader, both in vision and in execution. So they're a leader in the Gartner, we're a partner of theirs, and we're also on their partner advisory board for VeloCloud, for their VeloCloud business. What's additional to that is that we also participate in their hosted federation network, which basically means that we're leveraging their hosted gateways across the globe. While we're mainly focused in distribution within the United States, our reach does extend globally within that federation network. So that is huge. That's huge for you guys as a partner. That's huge for us to be able to sell and enter new markets. And then additionally, as it relates to cost comparison and the why NHC, VeloCloud or VMware SD-WAN, we are only deploying the VeloCloud premium subscription license. So a lot of competitors might have their standard or their enterprise, maybe some of their premium. We've standardized on just their premium. We've reduced our margin to make it super market competitive against other people's enterprise and standard license types. So we're giving nearly everything. I say nearly, there's always a caveat. We're giving nearly everything to the end user within their subscription right now. And again, we're cost competitive, and I encourage you to reach out to our channel sales just for some costing examples, and we can provide some data sheets as a wrap up from this webinar too. But from an SD-WAN perspective, that's what we're doing, and we're managing it to the end user as well. So it's a SD-WAN device or software or both that's deployed, fully managed by NHC from the cloud down to the desktop, expanding that edge. And on the third layer, the third piece is in the security realm. We are both a Palo Alto partner and a Checkpoint partner. And we developed those partnerships as a result of our partnership with VMware VeloCloud. Palo Alto and Checkpoint both have what's called a virtual network function, or VNF, for their firewall capabilities that ride on the edge of a customer's network on the VeloCloud device or on the VMware device, on the SD-WAN device. So we adopted that very, very early in our relationship with VeloCloud, and we've been deploying that more times than not. We're deploying that not only to a home user, but also across enterprise environments and big logistics companies that are distributing around the world and so on. We are supplying them security, managed security, on our VMware Edge natively in the device, which is huge. So, but what we're also doing on the security side, aside from the VNF, is we're supplying and supporting a cloud security function directly from Checkpoint, which allows us to move that security from the edge directly to the cloud, as some enterprises require that, or for compliance requirements. So that way it gives them greater visibility and greater control down to their end users and their endpoints. And then additionally, as a work from home component, who's supporting their VPN? Well, with our NHC Remote Secure, which is provided to us through our agreement and relationship with Checkpoint, we're able to route or handle those secure VPN connections from an endpoint like a laptop and so on and so forth directly into the same wide area network. So those are the three areas that we see that we're selling a lot of right now, and we see the growth just going through the roof as the work from home movement continues. Kind of a silver lining with COVID, I think, but certainly there are additional applications that are going to be layered into this purview as we enter into 2021 as it relates to software and software as a service and other Microsoft products as a result of our relationship with Metaswitch. So to wrap this up from a solution perspective, I would encourage you to please reach out to our channel team, and we'll follow up with all of you via email after this webinar with how to do that. You can, of course, go to our website at nhcgrp.com and reach out to our channel team that way to talk about some of these solutions and look at pricing examples for some of your customers and indeed gather some data sheets as well. So overall summary from this entire presentation, work from home is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. There's been companies and organizations like Google and so on that have had work from home or distributed workforce for years and years, but not to the extent that we're seeing it and we're actually doing it today. There was a massive pivot in March of this year where everything shut down and everyone had to work from home if we wanted to continue to work. And we're going to see that for a long time, as Glenn indicated with our research, with the studies that he showcased today. Work from home is certainly here to stay and is going to continue. That means that collaboration and connective applications are absolutely critical. We can't stress this enough. It goes beyond just UCaaS and it goes beyond just Zoom. It's how are all of these applications that allow us to work as if we're in the office, but from home, while still maintaining that productivity. So collaboration, SD-WAN, UCaaS, they all mean the same thing. They're super, super critical. And security shouldn't be downplayed. Security is not an afterthought. Security is probably most important due to that expanded edge. So the edge is no longer the edge of that brick and mortar or the edge of multiple brick and mortars with a data center. The edge is everywhere you are, whether we're at a coffee shop or we're working from home in Bolton, Massachusetts like I am, or wherever you are, driving in your car where you have Wi-Fi. Doesn't matter. That is the edge now. How do we secure it? How do we manage it? And how do we promote and encourage growth of our customers, our mutual customers, by deploying that security properly? So with NHC Security Solutions, we can certainly do that. We look forward to telling you more about how to do that. And then finally, NHC is certainly committed to delivering all services that any company would need in support of their distributed workforce. And that crosses all verticals. So that's not just, as Glenn had mentioned, finance and healthcare, but certainly in education. So we have a couple educational customers that they have a hybrid model set up. So they have multiple cohorts. So some cohort students AB on, Monday, Tuesday, and then BC on Thursday, Friday, where everybody across the district is schooling from home on, Wednesdays. We have a couple customers that are utilizing our collaboration services to help support their students. So we will support any customer in any vertical who is trying to support their distributed workforce. So those are the key takeaways from today. And I can't stress it enough. If you have any questions, hopefully you do. After this webinar, you reach out to us at nhcgrp.com. And with that, I will turn it back over to Gerald to wrap up the webinar. Thank you, Gerald. Thank you.
All right. Chris and Glenn, thank you very much. We got time for a few questions here. There's a lot of technologies out there today. Why is the stack so important from a work at home perspective? And what about managed services?
Glenn, you want to take that? You want me to?
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. So the stack has always been important regardless of whether people are in a brick and mortar or at home, right? I think that the stack is even more important now as it relates to the distributed workforce focus. And that is because NHC is doing things like deploying NHC wireless DIA, right? We're deploying that around the country, whether that's at a retail location or at somebody's home, as a redundant network connectivity option, not a primary, although it can be used as a primary intermittent initially prior to a broadband service going in. But we're deploying services like this in the first layer of the stack to augment people's connectivity. So that's huge. And we're also managing it. We're deploying our management access portal map. We're deploying that to our customers to go ahead and see what their data usage looks like, just to kind of check and make sure that they're not using too much, or maybe they shouldn't be streaming as much services, or so on and so forth. But we're deploying these services as well as broadband to a customer's location, regardless of where they are, of course not in their vehicle, to support them. So that's layer one in the stack, and that's critical, right? That's critical for today's environment. The overlay services speak for themselves. That's where everything I just talked about with regards to the SD-WAN and the managed SD-WAN and the UCaaS and collaboration and contact center. Contact center is so critical right now to be able to stay in contact with your customer's customer base, right? So if your customer is an e-commerce company that previously had a brick and mortar location that maybe they're not able to get into right now, we have a hallmark retailer up here in New England that fits that exact description, where they have locations across New England. They sell a whole bunch of a variety of hallmark type of things, but their stores plummeted, like most retail locations. So they quickly pivoted to e-commerce, adopted our contact center to go ahead and continue to communicate with their customers, both from an inbound perspective, but an outbound campaign perspective when they're selling their Alex and Ani stuff or whatever it is. So that's critical, and that falls within that second layer. So we check off the box with regards to needed for work from home. And then the third layer, the managed services layer, that is the coup de grace. That's kind of the adhesive that holds it all together, right? It's an absolute must. As businesses and organizations are struggling to come out on top of this, just to float and come out on top, the management of those services are critical. So why leave it to them? Leave it to the organizations that's deploying these services to go ahead and manage these professionally for them and proactively, and show them network health and application use and application health. So that way they can focus on managing their businesses and getting over the hump that is 2020. So hopefully that answers your question. I'm pretty passionate about it. I think our stack was great prior to 2020. Our stack is just as good, I think better now, suited for the entire marketplace because everyone is distributed. I think it hits the needs. And we're adding more services to our overlay services to increase the value of our stack. Things like Microsoft Teams and Teams integration within our SIP delivery services and so on. And then other SaaS as well. So hopefully that answers your question.
Excellent. Next question, how can companies in highly regulated industries like finance and healthcare ensure operational compliance in distributed environments? And how is NHC helping with that?
Sure. So I think, Glenn, I'll take this one as well. So I think from an NHC perspective, the number one thing that customers need to do, or they need to focus on if they're compliant, they need to make certain that they have two security pieces going. One is security prevention and mitigation, and that's the likes of firewall and some of the checkpoint Palo Alto things that I was talking about earlier. But the other is security detection and reporting, right? So, and those are two different things. So one is, we've all seen that commercial where, I forget if it was a Progressive commercial or whatever, but the bank is being robbed, and somebody says to the security guard, "Hey, the bank's being robbed." And the security guard looks around, he says, "Yes, the bank's being robbed, but I'm just a monitor. I'm security monitor," right? So, but he can't do anything. So our security guards in this case are our checkpoint and our VNFs and our firewalls. The security monitor, though, is the second piece, and that is services like Alien Vault. And we have Alien Vault available to us through our AT&T partnership and some other partnerships upstream. So these are security mitigation tools. Security monitoring tools and detection tools and reporting tools that are critical for the compliance heavy customers. So that is available to us. We can talk more about that with our channel partners as they reach out to us as a follow-up, and we can go ahead and spec that. But that is critical as the edge continues to expand. Compliances are required for organizations to go ahead and operate.
Fantastic. Next question.
If I could just add on that, Gerald, too.
Oh, sure.
I think the exciting thing here is pre-COVID, getting regulations and having more conservative end users, whether they be in the medical field or financial field, also, they simply wouldn't do it because the old tools of VPN, maybe a separate video teleconference, maybe occasionally I take my phone at home and I could use my hosted. That wasn't satisfied for them. There was not a holistic view of how I could do all of that securely in a work at home environment. Well, now because COVID forced the issue, the regulatory bodies have realized that technology exists now that allows you to do that. And this is now a golden opportunity for organizations like NHC and our agent community to really get out in the field and push this in a new way.
Okay, great. Next question on the list here: about how large does the company have to be for work from home resources to be purchased centrally by the company versus by work from home employees who are self-sourcing and expensing service costs monthly?
So Gerald, can you just restate that question? Was the question like how big are the organizations that we're supporting from a work from home perspective?
Exactly. Yeah.
Do they have to be like, what's the minimum size?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So look, since our inception, NHC has always challenged ourselves with, the markets that we're approaching, the size of the markets that we're hitting. Are we just SMB? Are we just enterprise? But what about the smaller companies? They need help too. We have a dynamic group of partners that live across multiple verticals, multiple market sizes. So to answer the question very directly, is there really isn't a specific size or number. I mean, if there's an opportunity where a customer that has multiple locations that they're trying to support now, we'll go ahead and absolutely look at that opportunity. I mean, what we're not trying to do is we're certainly not trying to support maybe like, a pizza shop owner that has one employee at home answering calls just to go ahead and submit pizza orders. I mean, that's not really the fit for NHC. But what the fit is for, or what the fit does look like for NHC, is really that customer that today has multiple solutions that they have deployed in their corporate center, in their brick and mortar location, and they have a number of employees that work in that operation, both supporting their operations and then perhaps selling and sales, inbound, outbound, and so on. Now that company is now distributed across multiple households across the country or within a region. They need those same tools. How do we go ahead and get them those tools? And NHC is going to go ahead and do that. So I would say,
as a good example, if I could add as a good example of that. So a lot of the service industries, Gerald, we're seeing that these smaller businesses that still do a lot of business, but they don't have that many employees, such as, for instance, an insurance broker. Okay, a lot of that is dramatically changed as a result of COVID, whereas people would always work out of an office and they'd be accessing the APIs of the upstage big insurance companies. The reality is they don't need to. So, for instance, our business insurance company that we've been working with for 15 years, who is also a NHC customer, by the way, they have our hosted services. Their employees have high-speed broadband at their houses, and they are really pretty much able to operate really 100%, lights out at the old office. They can go to the office if they like, but in practicality, how many of us ever actually go to our insurance broker's office? We never do. So it really is now, it's an opportunity for them to consider, okay, how do I want to do work at home 3 or 4 days a week, even after COVID? Because I don't really need to be in the office anymore. And that, like I said, that could be an under 10-person organization, but with this technology, and as long as they have broadband, high speed at home, very easy.
Yeah. And just one other piece to that too. Those are great points, Glenn. Those customers that maybe they're used to operating within that kind of box, right? Within their office environment, they might still have servers, at their office environment. They haven't fully embraced the cloud. Maybe they kind of dip their toe in it with, managed voice or some sort of a UCaaS or a SIP service. The reality is that those customers have to adopt the cloud now. They must. So what does that mean? That means that those customers are moving their data that's housed locally up to the cloud. They're moving them to places like Azure and AWS and so on and so forth. So how do they access them securely? And how is that access measured? And how do you develop KPIs around that as the customer? Well, the answer there is a variety of solutions, one of which is SD-WAN. SD-WAN is a logical cloud onboarding tool to allow customers to access that data regardless of where it is. If it's in the cloud, it's better. It is what it is. So we're supporting those customers in that fashion as well.
Excellent, excellent. Guys, I think that should wrap up today's webinar. Big thank you to Glenn and Chris and to the entire NHC team. Of course, to all of you for attending today's event. Please keep your eye on your inbox as we'll be announcing the winner of the $100 Amazon gift card contest. To access this webinar on demand, please head over to channelvisionmag.com/webinars. And also keep an eye out for a follow-up email with a link to this on demand. Thanks. Stay safe out there, everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.